Hello and welcome to episode 197 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. We are here today for one of the most anticipated shows we have all year. Last year, this particular show ranked second, number two, only after the Kentucky Derby preview as most watched shows. We're very happy today to talk about all the fantastic European entries in this year's Breeders' Cup with my good friend and friend of the podcast, Davey Lane, who's going to be with us from Liverpool, England, in just a few minutes. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. We'd really appreciate it. After you do that, hit that like button. That will tell YouTube this is a great show. There's also a notification bell. It is absolutely crucial that you hit that notification bell. I'll tell you why in just a minute. We have fantastic shows. We have 5 more live shows coming up just on the Breeders' Cup alone. You want to check that out. If you hit that notification bell, it'll tell you when new content will arrive. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter. You can see it on the name tag at @HKravitz. I'm going to be very active on Twitter in the next week, especially next weekend. I will be at the Breeders' Cup and I'll be tweeting out pictures, videos, etc. Also, on the bottom of the screen, reach me by email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. You can see it right there on the bottom of the screen. You can listen to us if you don't catch the videos. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Anchor. Please check that out. We also have Power Picks. This is a tip sheet. It's been very popular. It's very inexpensive. Do it right now. Subscribe to the Power Picks, and you can see, go through Patreon, look below the video player. It's only $15.99 the entire month. It's for 30 days. It's a 30-day subscription. And with that subscription comes 2 huge Breeders' Cup editions. And because it's only $4 a weekend, you're getting 2 huge Breeders' Cup editions for $4. That's it. Spot plays, price plays, maybe some roughies, some long shots, as Davey likes to say. We're going to bring out all the European vocabulary on tonight's show. So you'll get a lot of interesting picks, horizontal plays, vertical plays. Please check out the Power Picks. You do not want to miss that. Also, we have a Pick Six Syndicate. We are collecting money to play both Pick Sixes. There are $1 Pick Sixes on Friday and Saturday, the Breeders' Cup. We already have thousands of dollars people have sent in to invest into our Pick Six. If you are interested in investing in our Pick Six Syndicate, you can see there, email me at hkravitzhorse@gmail.com, and I will send you the information right away. This is an opportunity for a major score. Hope you join us on our Pick Six team. And then finally, hhhracingpodcast.com is our excellent website. You can check out all the information on there. Last thing before we bring on Davey Lane, let me show the schedule coming up so everyone can see what's happening here on the shows. I'm going to go ahead and present this full screen. So as you can see, our next show will be Monday. Actually, we have a show tonight, to be honest, that is not a Breeders' Cup show. Check us out tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. You see that towards the middle of the screen. But at the top of the screen for Breeders' Cup shows, our next show is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're watching this in Europe, that's 7 o'clock New York time. We're going to be talking about the post-position draw, as the gate draws will be assessed by that time. We'll talk about that. Also, Monday, I'm going to release a taped show about the BC contest, which is the biggest live money contest in the world. It's a $10,000 entry. And last year's winner, Matt Miller, and another excellent handicapper and previous winner, Marshall Graham, will be with me on that taped episode that I'm going to release on Monday. And then Tuesday and Wednesday next week, 8 o'clock Eastern time or New York time, will be the Breeders' Cup Friday and Breeders' Cup Saturday previews with 2 excellent guest handicappers, Justin Christine and Chad Schexnader. Ladies and gentlemen, we have this Breeders' Cup covered like a glove. I really hope you're going to join us for many of these fantastic podcasts. All right. Wow. Got through all the particulars. I think it's time to bring on a gentleman I'm a big fan. I'm a fan. I'm a friend. I miss him also. We'll talk about that a little bit when he comes on, because we were hoping to have him over the summer. But anyway, this gentleman, I'll let him talk about himself, but he's very humble. All I can tell you is he's one of the best handicappers in the UK. He's won many betting contests. He's given us excellent information on this podcast over the year and a half plus that we've been in existence. Let's bring him on. He's with us live. It is after 11 o'clock. I think it's 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock local time in the UK. And he is so dedicated. He's going to be with us late from the UK. Let's bring him on. Our friend of the show, Davey Lane. Davey, how you doing, my friend?
How you doing, Howard? Good to see you again.
Great to see you. Davey, I talked a little bit. I just want to say on behalf of the HHH Racing Podcast, we miss you. We love you. We wish you were here for Ascot, but, family issues got in the way. I know you had a very tough summer. You don't have to expound on it, but we were all thinking about you, and we're happy you're here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Davey, Breeders' Cup, man.
I might put on my new glasses here, man. You might get a reflection, so I'm sorry to the viewers for that.
No, that's okay. It's all good. If you have any questions on any of the Europeans for Davey Lane, he's an excellent handicapper. Of course, I've done my deep diving already. I'm ready to rock and roll with some video replays and talk about these horses. But any questions you have for Davey Lane, please make sure you put them in the chat. Now, Davey, as I said, this was our second highest show ever last year. We're going to have a lot of people watching the show that can't watch it live. So I will say also, if you have any questions, put them below the video player. If you don't have a chance to watch us live, any questions below the video player, and Davey, you and I will look below the video player on YouTube in the next few days and try to answer as many questions as possible for people that do not have a chance to watch us live. We already have Trish Smith, who Davey, you might remember, a big fan of the show from Lexington, who's very excited to have you here. She says 2 horses running Friday she's really interested in are Lady Hollywood and Midnight Mile. I know you're definitely interested in one of those. Really curious to hear what your opinion is and what price you think they will be. So David will talk about those two.
Yeah.
Penn State Scott is also here, wants to give us another winner. Maybe, I don't know about a 60 to 1 like Ray Shun, but we'll do the best we can. Davey, before we get into particulars about certain horses, what's your general thought about the horses coming over to America for this year's Breeders' Cup?
It's what you have to realize. It's when you say Euros, I mean, it's basically just the UK and Irish. There's only one French entry. And further afield, there are only one Japanese entry. There's no Africans, and there's no, there are maybe a couple of South Americans have joined on with US trainers. So it's not necessarily the most cosmopolitan of the Breeders' Cups. They're usually in California, I sense, where the ground is guaranteed and the Asians can get there easier. But nevertheless, it's as usual. It'll be a good competition, and I think the Euros are going to be strong this year. Probably because in the turf races, the Americans, at least on paper, look weak, but they don't run the race on paper; they run the races on the grass. So don't we know? So I mean, so there we go. And you can only go through and look for clues. I mean, I generally try to look for, snippets of information, almost like maybe a police detective looking through the long grass, with this situation, and as opposed to looking at the straight up form and then find an angle that way. And that can be all sorts of things. It can be throwaway comments by a trainer. It can be any number of things. And that's why you need a good media to get into it, which is kind of what you've been doing. And I lean more often now to the Australian and the Asian racing because I feel like I get better media. No disrespect to the UK and American ones, but I feel they're more thorough. And so when you call me a UK punter, I mean, my God, I mean, at this particular moment in time, half my brain is in Australia,
I like to be in Australia. I always wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Davey, we have a wide variety of people that watch this show. We have beginners and novice players. We also have very experienced players. For the players that are not too familiar overall with European racing, I think it's fair to say that the trainers that us American bettors would like to, when we look at the program, to really focus on would be Charles Appleby especially, and also Aidan O'Brien. Would you agree with that in general?
Yeah, in general, that's clearly the truth. They're the two behemoth stables.
Yeah,
one representing Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai, and the other representing an Irish horse owning syndicate, which is as powerful as many nations, really. I mean, these guys know what they're doing, you know.
And then in terms of jockeys, we don't know exactly who's coming over, but tell the American bettors who aren't familiar with some of the European jockeys, some of the better ones to look out for that will most likely be coming to Kentucky.
Well, it's hard to know because jockey bookings aren't confirmed, but some horses have got jockeys already lined up. For example, Frankie Dettori is booked on many different horses already, and if that information is out there, and he's arguably the best there's ever been, and he's still riding. One of the things I love about Dettori is that when I was a kid, my grandmother, my uncle, long gone now, but he was riding when they were sort of watching the TV and the racing. So I still feel a connection to them, with Dettori. His name would be shouted. So it's the fact that he's still going around is soothing for me,
Tris Smith suggests maybe we try to make the Melbourne Cup. We still have time, Davey, to get there.
Yeah, hey, I'd love to go. I've never been to I've been to Australia a few times, but never Melbourne, and it's a great day out by all accounts.
That's a bucket list trip for me. All right, Davey, we got a lot of horses to talk about. We have a lot of people. Everyone, get your paper and pencils out and your pens and ready to rock and roll. And of course, you can always watch this as a replay. We're going to try to show some video. We're not going to show as much videos last year, Davey, for certain reasons, but we are going to show some replays, some videos. I have some up on the screen. There are video replays on breederscup.com. Everyone in the world can check those out. I'm going to get some replays from Nyber Bets, which is an excellent betting site here in the United States. Go ahead, David.
One thing I wanted to add was that the weather in the UK right now has probably been the warmest October, mildest October I can recall. And that probably affects horses in terms of their mental health and their coats and what have you. They'll often come out to a Breeders' Cup after having about 2 weeks of see your own breath in the barn cold and damp coming through the walls. And then they go off and fly off to the States. They're leaving right now kind of thinking it's still summer. So I think that's probably an advantage.
That's interesting.
We'll
the weather in Kentucky has been extremely warm and generally speaking dry. They are expecting some rain in Kentucky this weekend, about a half an inch. And then next week, Davey, it looks like early spring. It looks unbelievably good in Lexington, Kentucky. It looks like as of now, 70 and sunny. The turf is not going to be firm because it's November in Kentucky. But it would be, I would say, as the Euros would consider good, it's going to be good. There's going to be a little bit of cushion in it for sure. But it is not going to be super wet. And I know we're going to talk about a bunch of horses here, Davey, that would prefer soft ground. I'm not sure they're going to get it next weekend.
Right. And maybe
very interesting.
A surprise to connections, and we'll see. I mean, an interesting one. There's been some scratches already. Saffron Beach is out, and I thought that needed firm ground, so I'm surprised that that's out. And Bayside also.
Yeah, those are two big scratches. Saffron Beach was first call to the Fillies Mare Turf and second preference to the mile, but according to Davey Saffron, and everyone just walked home as it's 4:15 here, Chicago time. Literally just walked home from work here, so I apologize. I'm not up to date on the news today, but Saffron Beach is out, and then Bayside Boy, who was very impressive in the mile, beating Modern Games, is also out. So those are two big scratches that we'll talk about later in the card. All right,
I mean, go.
No,
let's go.
Please go ahead.
No, I mean, well, one other final wider point. I hear a lot of people, particularly on your show, talk about odds checker as a way of referencing things. And I think what you have to realize is that the market action in the UK is very negligible at the moment. Any moves are not necessarily because of the betting, but adjustments by the traders. And what you have to realize is that each of the English bookmakers, they will have a team of traders who come up with a tissue, what they call a tissue, which is in essence a morning line. And any adjustments or changes that you see in these early stages are probably these guys peeking at each other's homework and saying, well, my God, what have we got wrong here? Let's adjust this. So the British markets can be very opaque. And just because you see a change or a horse cut doesn't necessarily mean there's been money put on the horse. It can be bookies playing double games with you. They can be enticing you. They can be wanting you to get money on. They could be drawing you in. So people have to realize that. People in the States talk about the British books as a reflection of market activity, and often close to the race it is, but many times it isn't, and you have to be aware of that. They're up to something else sometimes. and they're not always showing the money. It's not a parimutuel, you know. They have reasons
Yes,
for cutting and lengthening horses, you know.
absolutely.
Okay, so
It's
just to
something we
get
need.
back there,
Yeah, you got to dance on your toes. You got to be familiar with what's going on with some of the overseas pricing. Davey, let's jump into the races, and we're going to go in chronological order of the races. We are probably not going to talk about every single European that's running next weekend, but we are going to touch on the main ones. We're going to try to
right?
show some replays, and we're going to help you folks at home sort of differentiate between some of the horses that might seem obvious, maybe some sneaky long shots or roughies per se that are coming over that might escape some of the United States bettors in the betting market. Dave, let's go right to the first race of the Breeders' Cup card on Friday. That's going to involve Breeders' Cup races, which is the Juvenile Turf Sprint. And the first horse I want to talk about, I'm going to bring up some past performances on the screen, Davey, and then of course we're also going to show some video replays. This horse right here, the Platinum
Right.
Queen, is quite a story, Davey. I'll let you briefly talk about her. She is most likely going to be the favorite, or certainly one of the top favorites in the betting market anywhere, whether it be here or overseas or commingled pools. This is a
Yeah,
fantastic filly and a great story.
yeah, and deserves to be favourite, and currently is about 5-2. It's a 2-year-old that's ran in races against older horses, getting a stone or weight more, you know, like 14, 15 pounds more, and winning impressively with an up and coming, well, no longer up and coming, but with one of Britain's top jockeys, Holly Doyle, riding.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fast horse. I mean, this, you know, it's definitely one of the 3 main contenders out of the 6 Euros. I've narrowed it down to 3, that's for sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and show. I'm going to show the Platinum Queen here. Let me take the banner off. This is when she won the Prix de l'Abbé
Right,
at Longchamp. I know it's hard to see. She's this horse right over here, all the
right.
way on the right side of the screen there, and she had the lead the whole way. I guess the question, Davey, for a lot of these Euros and turf sprints, there is a lot of very fast Americans in this race. I don't know how good they are, but they're
Mhm.
fast early. Can the Platinum Queen, keep up and not be too far off the pace? I think is going to be one of the major questions.
Yeah, I don't have her as the winner. I think the hustle and bustle will probably affect the horse. I think the race at Longchamp was in very soft conditions. That
Mm-hmm.
probably has impacted the horse more than they'll let on. I think it's owned by a syndicate, a very good syndicate, which means it'll have multiple owners who are all racing people with regular jobs, like you and I. It's not the the sheikhs and the oligarchs who own this horse.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that's a good story, and it's good to cheer for. I just fear that the horse. I've seen it before. A younger horse. You know, running against elders. They could have gone. They could have gone for the turf sprint, but they've gone
Yeah.
back to the juvenile turf sprint. So maybe that's smart. Maybe they're just trying to cut the cloth accordingly. So, but I still
Well, she
think it's
beat, as Davey just said, she beat elders in that race,
yeah,
which here in the States is, unheard of. A
unheard of.
two-year-old beating
Yeah,
elders, but she did it very well. Again, I want everyone to notice on the screen here this time form rating. Again, Davey, I'm sort of leaning towards people who may not be as familiar that are watching, but this time form rating is a generally world-renowned, acceptable rating of how fast these horses are. You see 201s, and let me put us both on screen.
yeah,
In general, everyone, this is a generalization. For those of you that are very have a good understanding of the buyer figures, which is of course popular here in the United States, the time form ratings in general are 15 to 20 points more. So you can subtract anywhere, ballpark figure between 15 and 20 points from that time form rating.
yeah,
If you believe in that, that puts Platinum Queen around the low to mid 80s. So that's an
yeah.
important number to think about when you see the buyers of the Americans. Davey?
Which is impressive for a 2-year-old, right? I mean, this is what
Yes. No
you know.
question about it.
2-year-olds who become Kentucky Derby favorites aren't in the mid 80s, or the ones that are just in the mid 80s, correct? And then they
Yes.
rise from there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, another horse. There's two horses I want to talk about next in this race because one of them I'm very interested. I want to talk about Dramatized and Love Reigns. Love Reigns is not an American. Excuse me, he's not a Euro. Love Reigns is trained by Wesley Ward, but Dramatize is a 2-year-old filly. I'm going to bring up just the end of the replay of the Ascot race, Davey, and you can talk it through a little bit. I will point out, because there are a lot of horses here, I will point out, of course, who these horses are. Love Reigns is right here. This is the Wesley Ward trained horse. This was an Ascot and the Queen Mary, so this was in June. And Dramatize is this gray horse right here, who is it looks to me, it might be more of a closer, Davey, a come from behind. That might be a filly that could be one to watch out for as a price on Breeders' Cup weekend. What do you think of Dramatize right here in the gray?
Well, I like Dramatized. It's clearly been the plan. Maybe it's the plan because the connections Clipper Logistics, who are again not fully not a syndicate in the same way the Platinum Queen Syndicate are, but maybe a small, different, more narrow bunch of owners. They like coming to the States. They bring horses to the States quite often. So this has been their target probably since Ascot, probably since this race. So the fact that the weather is good and this horse won on good to firm, it probably puts a horse in there, I would say. But
do you know,
you've got
do you know why this horse has been off? That's my only concern. This horse has a lot of stops and starts, which you don't usually see for a good European. They haven't raced since August. Has this horse just slow to develop? Was there some little nicks, little injuries? Have you heard anything?
I can vaguely recall minor issues, but nothing significant. And the trainer's an unheralded Northern trainer, quite judicious and careful, very good. I mean, he was banned a few years ago, but that was just because he took money from a gambler about something, and he did his time. He was banned from the game for a year or two, but he's generally a good guy. No, I don't think he's a needle guy. So
we've never heard of needle, David. We've never heard of needle guys over here in the States. We don't have those here. The other thing, Davey, I want to point out that's going to be a theme, and I'd love to hear your commentary on this. A lot of these horses coming over are getting a big weight breaks. You see, Dramatized for a 2-year-old filly was running, with 128 pounds, 131, and she's been running for 119. How much do you value weight? I mean, this is only 5.5, furlongs. This is only 1,100 meters versus maybe a longer race that's 2,000 meters. How do you value weight in general?
I think I mean if it's 3 pounds, it doesn't impact me. But anything with 6 and above, I think, is significant. I mean, if you only have to lift a dumbbell yourself that's 10 pounds and realize how heavy it is. I mean, it's not insignificant. So, but it depends on the horse too. And I think one of the failings of Western racing, UK and US racing, is the failure to give the punters, the horse players, the actual weights of the horses. You want to know, if a horse is having to carry more, but it's a 600 pound beast. I mean, you have to know these things.
There are some tracks that do that. I know for those people that don't know, in general, the average thoroughbred is about 1,000 pounds. I don't know how many stones that is, Davey, so I don't know the conversion of that. Anyway, Davey, there's 2 other horses. I'm not going to show any replays here, but I know you're very interested in 2 others, and that'd be Persian Force and also Mischief. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name. Mischief Magic and also Persian Force. Your thoughts on those 2?
Well, let me start with a throwaway quote from Charlie Appleby, so-called throwaway quote. He said, when interviewed about his horse's chances, and I quote, "The 2-year-olds will be the ones with the question marks." Okay. Now, I took that very seriously because someone like Charlie Appleby, he's a straight shooter. Everything he says is usually on the money. Now, when he says something like that to me, I think he's warning me not to get carried away with all of the recent wins in the States and so on. And what you have to realize with Godolphin, as much as you think it's Charlie Appleby making the decisions on major international festivals, surprising as this may seem, it'll be Sheikh Mohammed making the decision about which horses are traveling. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. Now, if Appleby turns around and says, well, these horses probably don't win, they'll be competitive, Mohammed, he'll want them there because it's not necessarily about winning for him. It's about participation. It's about, for a lot of the Gulf states, what you have to realize, it's about relevance. They want to be considered relevant. They live in a sort of fear of the big powers around the world, the Persians, the Saudis, and they want to maintain that the fact that they're relevant. And that's why they invest in horse racing and so on, and go on the carriage with the Queen and do things. So for me, the two-year-olds from Godolphin, I'm tossing. And I'm tossing them, not necessarily on the book and the figures, but on Appleby's comment. Because I think Appleby's told me something there. And I'm taking him at his word.
You'll be tossing Mischief Magic, and then that means you're also tossing. I'm sorry.
Silver Knot later on.
Oh, later on. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We talk about Persian Force just a bit, and then we're going to move on. This is Richard Hannon, who's an excellent trainer. This horse looks very live to me, cutting back a little bit in distance.
Yeah, it's cutting back. I mean, this has gone 6 furlongs all the time. I think initially 5 furlongs, but the cut back to 5.5 is perfect. The horse could have been a winner of every race it ran in this year. It's been very, very competitive. I mean, if it's been there all the time, with the exception of that beast, the Little Big Bear in Ireland. But otherwise, the horse is competitive and it's there, and I think the racing is good for it. One issue would be Hannon. Hannon is notorious for not traveling horses well. I mean, there's a technique of he's good domestically. He pops over the water to Deauville or maybe to Dublin, but he doesn't really travel to Dubai. And anytime him or his father have gone to the States, it's been disasters. So I think they've tried to do something about that. And I would hope they've got it right. I mean, it's a cozy stadium. And the Queen of England had once said, I think, to Hannon himself, that she likes, before she passed, that she always liked to visit her horses at the Hannon yard, because it was the only yard that didn't feel like it had been painted just the day before she arrived. So it's that kind of place.
Old school, yeah.
Yeah, it's old school, and I kind of like it. So my sympathies are there. I've got a feeling that he's confident about it, and I'm behind the horse. Now, one other dynamic is the horse ownership. You have to be aware of the prerogatives of the owners here. The owner has put in another horse with a different trainer into the race. What would that be? Lady Hollywood.
Right? Yeah.
Now,
Trish Smith was asking about this horse.
Go ahead. No, I don't rate this horse's chances, but I think the horse is there because the owner wants to take another horse out of the race if he's got one of his own. I mean, that's logical. If the horse meets the criteria and it gets in, it may not be a winning chance, but it stops a dark horse from another barn coming into the mix. I mean, and the owner's an interesting character. I mean, he's not he's a former he's a bit of a soccer wheeler dealer, so he gets in fights with his jockeys, etc. But I think this is his best horse, and Dettori was booked a long time ago for the horse. So yeah. So this says a lot
against this horse, though.
Huh? No, Persian Force. I'm for Persian Force. I'm against Lady Hollywood.
Right. Can you talk about your top 3, Davey? That you have top Euros in this race.
The top 3 Euros: Persian Force, Dramatized, Platinum Queen. Those are the top 3.
So you really think you believe in Dramatized? I do also. I think she's got a shot.
Yeah, she's got a shot. I mean, I almost can't split them. But if Platinum Queen is 5-2 and Persian Force is 10-1, I'm on Persian Force all day long.
Is my last question? Like I said, there's a lot of early speed. It's hard to tell by the form. You can watch races. My feeling is Dramatized can come from behind. You see, I saw like Lady Hollywood, when you look in the short comments, it says Prominent went to the lead. These horses are not as fast as Speedboat Beach for Baffert or Tyler's Trot. I mean, there are some very fast horses from the States early. I've got to believe if a Euro wins, even if it's Persian Force, they're going to be coming from behind and quicken in that final 16th. Is that your feeling, Davey?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Dramatized is a closer either. I mean, I think you've got to get used to the fact that these wide lane Ascot races. I mean, they're hard to compare with these curved, coming around the side of the track.
All right, let's get on to the next race. The Juvenile Fillies Turf. Now, the next race on Friday is the Juvenile Fillies, but ladies and gentlemen, we're not covering races that Euros are not in. Let's go to the Juvenile Fillies Turf. There's a horse, Davey, that you know called Blue Rose Sen that would have been a big favorite in my opinion.
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
have singled that horse. I thought Blue Rose Sen would have been a complete standout in that race. Unfortunately, she got injured and it is not coming. There are some nice Euros coming over, though, despite that. And there's two that I want to talk about specifically. Meditate, who I think is getting a lot of getting a little buzz here in the States, and also Midnight Mile. We can certainly talk about others. I'm going to let you run the show. Who would you like to talk about first in the Juvenile Fillies Turf?
Well, first of all, I would have been talking about Never Ending Story, but that's also a scratch.
Oh, that's new. Okay, I had her listed down. I didn't fancy her very much for Aidan O'Brien. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah. I did neither. I think she was too keen over 7 and she emptied out over 8. She was neither fish nor fowl. I wasn't interested at all. Meditate.
Let's go with your top choice. I'm gonna let you. I have a sort of an order here, but you know what? That doesn't seem right to me. So I'll just let you talk about who you'd like to mention, and I'll bring up replays as we go along.
The clear class horse for me is Meditate by far. To me, it's probably the best Euro on making the trip over, in my opinion.
You mean on Friday or the whole weekend?
The whole weekend. I think it's the best.
Wow.
Euro. Yeah.
Wow. Davey Lane, a big fan of Meditate. Okay, let's talk about this 2-year-old filly by No Name Never.
No Name Never, yeah. I mean, it's been beaten narrowly in its Group 1s and ran very well on both occasions. It was a super easy with facile winner at Royal Ascot. It was being lined up to be O'Brien's top filly, and sometimes he doesn't bring them, but he's bringing it this time. I think because it narrowly missed out on the Group 1s, and he wants to put that in the cupboard, you know. So, and that's why he's going. I think what you also have to look at is who else is going from that operation now with Never Ending Story out. That leaves one other by Joseph O'Brien, and if you think Joseph O'Brien and Aidan O'Brien are, you know, different stables, well, sort of, but you know, the ownership of Basil or Basil Martini is the wives of Magnier and Shanahan, part of the crew.
Yes.
I mean, and that horse to me is riding shotgun for Meditate. I mean, that's why it's been entered. It's met the criteria to get in the race, but it's going to be there. It likes to make all, so hopefully it'll go and string them out as best he can, so Meditate doesn't get boxed in. I think that's the main reason. And I think they were deciding.
So Davey, I just want to make this clear that you're saying, as we say in the States, a rabbit. You're suggesting that Basil Martini will be a rabbit and sort of automatically go to the lead and try to set up for Meditate, who will be better sort of with a target. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meditate getting the mile, Davey. Any concerns about the mile distance for Meditate?
Not for me. I mean, I think it's bred for that and bred for further. And the ground will help.
Now, Midnight Mile, I know is a horse, Davey, that you're interested. I am fascinated with this horse. I don't know if she classes up. What are your opinions of Midnight Mile? I'm going to show the video replay of the Oh So Sharp because she had to steady, and I think it was a sneaky bad trip, and she was very impressive to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well. All right.
No, you disagree.
I don't agree. I won't be touching this horse with a 10-foot pole. No.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I do want to show the replay though. Anyway.
Show it.
You know what, Davey? It's going to take me a little time to get that up. Who do you fancy other than Midnight Mile?
To me, that Midnight Mile in the Oh So Sharp, which was it came from a nothing race. It's in its maiden, so they threw it in and it won. I'm not sure that strength of the field.
Okay.
The horse kind of was trying to figure out what to do and eventually came between horses and won, but it didn't win sort of going away. It won in, all right, it wasn't a bunch, but it was almost a bunch finish. It's a small potatoes owner for a good Yorkshire trainer, a good Northern trainer. I think it's a lady owner. It doesn't have many horses. I think it's a trip for the owner myself.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and the media like to promote these when they see it. And, the media, a lot of the British media are owned by the bookies anyway. So you have to be very careful. I mean, this is the cynical side of me coming out. But, when I hear
okay. Listen, I want your opinions. I mean,
when I hear people talking about it and I look at it and I'm like, well, I don't see that at all. So
There was a particular
happy
move
to
that
see
she
it.
made that
And
I was
I
impressed
like
with.
Richard Fahey horses. You see, it's got the white cap. Has it got the white cap? Is this
Yeah,
the
it's
race?
right here on the inside, and she's
Yeah.
got like steady right here. She steadies
Right.
and sort
Right.
of comes to the outside, and then
Yeah.
makes this nice. You're gonna see this horse split right here. She
Yeah.
still had to wait. I think that's the horse. Yeah, and
Yeah.
as she
Yeah.
comes
That's
right here, this is a nice move to me. I could be wrong, but
it.
this is impressive to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the
Yeah.
5 here on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, she won in it. It was a little bunch. It wasn't a big bunch of 5, but there was kind of like 2 others kind of there.
She's
Yeah.
strong through the line. I don't know, Davey. Maybe at a
Right. Yeah.
price, I thought she was interesting.
Right. Maybe underneath, as they say in the States, but I don't think it has the class of
Okay.
Meditate.
Who else do you fancy in this race, Davey? Anyone else?
Well, I think you have to keep your eye on a couple of things with. I haven't really touched the American types, but just Spirit Gal. Well, I'm gonna have to talk about this for a minute. This is a Fipke-owned horse, Canadian guy. That's
Yes.
unusual. He sometimes has horses running in Dubai for Doug Watson and other people.
Yes.
Now, what's another unusual factor of it is Shamie Heffernan, the Coolmore number 2, the Ballydoyle number 2, sorry, he's ridden the horse 3 times. He's won with it, and the last race he won at Dundalk. Have you got it up there? He was ahead of a Ballydoyle horse.
Yeah, I don't have that video. I don't have that replay.
Yeah, you don't have to have that video, but he was impressive in that race. Now
Okay.
he's a long shot, and he hasn't run since Dundalk, and that's a synthetic track and so on.
Yes.
And I'm not saying he's a winner, but I would really like to see who is booked for the race. You know?
Okay. Yeah,
Will Shamie Heffernan make the trip over just to ride a horse for a major Canadian owner that isn't his employer, or will they be forced to put the? I'd be curious about how that works out. I mean, you can't really say what's going to happen until you know all of that particular detail.
Sure.
So,
yeah, she beat Cairo, who's going to be running in the juvenile Fillies with the the juvenile boys race, which we're going to talk about in just a minute.
Yeah,
So basically, Davey, the moral of the story is we move on. You're all about Meditate in this race in terms of the Euros. You think she's going to be very tough to beat?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Let's go on to the next race. I got a lot of clicking, a lot of buttons in front of me here, Davey. We have a lot of people watching, by the way, live, and it is earlier in the later in the afternoon. We realize a lot of people are still at work and whatnot. Greatly appreciate everyone watching live. Please make sure you put comments in the chat. We don't have a lot of comments right now, Davey, because people are tuned in. They're locked in to everything that we're saying here. So especially you, maybe not me. Let's go to the next race on Friday that I want to focus on, which is going to be the Juvenile Turf. This is for the boys. I'm going to go ahead and switch it over here. This is a race that usually the Euros do very well in. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this race as I flip over my own notes. There's a horse in this race, Davey, and I like I said, I did my deep dive and my research as well before you're on the show. And you can confirm this. I sent you a DM. I talked to you about Silver Knot about 48 hours ago. And I basically just said bad favorite question mark. And you said absolutely. You and I are both against this horse that will most likely be possibly the favorite. Talk a little about Silver Knot and why you're slightly against this horse, who's going to be take a lot of money in the market.
Bearing in mind what I said about Appleby and the 2-year-olds earlier, so put that in the back of your head of what I said. Now follow that up with the actual franking of the form. When that horse's most recent victory, the horses that were around him subsequently ran against the hot pot from O'Brien's yard in the Vertum Futurity, the sort of basically the last big 2-year race of the season, flat race, and were beaten out of sight. So that, to me, put Silver Knot in the sort of back in the pack. And that's the reason why Appleby said there's a question. So on the form being franked through probably the better 2-year-old this year, Silver Knot's nowhere. Therefore, it's in a pack with a bunch of others. So what are the bunch of others? Well, you'll have to look at what the Americans are, which I haven't quite gone deep on. But then I looked at the O'Briens. Now, the higher in the market of the O'Briens is Cairo, and I was kind of like not really impressed with Cairo. It was put in its place by Spirit Gal at Dundalk. It won a subsequent Group 3, but slow time. All right, it was autumn ground, but I wasn't impressed with the gallop out so much. And
Davey,
then I look.
if I could just interrupt you, Davey, this is now. This horse wants firm ground. I think that's pretty. This is Silver Knot right here
Right.
in this
Yeah.
3-horse race at Doncaster. This was not a great effort, but the ground was soft. So I'm showing this, Davey, because I think it's pretty clear to me that this horse, who's sort of like a heavy. I'm not sure this horse has like a big turn of foot. This horse seemed more like grindy type to me. That I think this horse is going to be much better on firm. So if it's firm, I think you can upgrade Silver Knot. If there's some give in the ground, I think that's going to hurt Silver Knot's chances.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't look like a type that can go around corners that well either. So
okay, might not like the turns. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
who do you fancy in this race, Davey?
Well, there's only one left, and I sent you some screenshots earlier. Related to this. I don't know if you've got them or you can show them.
I do. You sent them through DMs, is that right? I can pull that up. Go ahead and keep talking, and I'll pull those up.
Yeah, pull those up. They were on the Gmail. I sent them to you.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a reason I sent them to you. There's two races, one at Deauville and one at Chantilly, and they may be slightly fuzzy, but you'll get the point because I'll point something out. I'll point something out in those two particular photographs.
Okay, let me pull these up here. I'm going to bring them over on the screen. I think they're just going to pop up.
Here we go. Great. Excellent.
This is one of them, and then we can talk about the other one as well.
Let's talk about this one. If you look to the horse on the left-hand side of the screen as you look, the second one, this one
right here?
Yeah.
Okay,
and what's that horse doing? That horse is breaking out of the gate like a scolded cat.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? You can see that, right?
Broke very well. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now, have you got the next one?
I do. Hold on one second. There you go, sir. Yeah. Right here, right?
Yeah. And who's this breaking out of the gate like a scolded cat at Chantilly in the subsequent race?
Yep, that's Victoria Road.
That's Victoria Road.
Right here.
Now this has to be noted because it's a common lazy sort of saying, and it's a truism probably. The Euros don't break well, but this horse breaks. This horse breaks well, and more than the gate speed, which is super important. The horse can rate you. The horse follows the instructions, whether it was Mendicibal or I think it was Ryan Moore on the other occasion. Yes. The horse follows instructions, and the horse didn't bolt away and run too over keen or waste its energy. It just nestled back into about third along the rail and waited for further instructions. So that's another thing to like about it. And finally, when the horse gets into the horse racing time of the race in the final sort of furlong and a half, the eyeball to eyeball moment. I don't know if you could get either of those two races up from the France Gallo site. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm working on one of them that I want to get up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Try to get that up, because when that horse sees another horse, I mean, you can see it. If you're a horse player, you can see how these horses react to some other horse around it, and it wants to win. Now, ultimately, whether it's good enough, I don't know, but the breeding's good enough. It's by Saxon Warrior, and that's our old friend Deep Impact's son. So this is deep. I mean, and this is, here we go. Yeah, we got it. Here we go. Right here. Boom. Wow. You see that?
Yeah.
Now, you see
I'll go ahead and bring it forward a little bit here.
Yeah, but you see also how relaxed.
Let it play through. He's right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you see how relaxed the horse got straight away?
Yes.
It bolted and it relaxed because it followed the instructions. Now, if you keep looking, we're at Deauville, yeah. This would be Mendicibal riding. He's the Basque rider. He often rides for the Irish over in France.
Comes up the on the rail side here.
Yeah.
And there's a horse that this is Blue Rose Cien, by the way, I believe, Davey.
Yeah. Exactly.
And when Victoria Road sees, just go right there, extends out again.
Exactly. Twice it extended out when it got a look.
And here's the gallop out. And this is a competitor. This is a fighter, right, Davey? That's what you're trying to say, basically.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And it's reaching for the line. Look. It wasn't
very strong through the wire. I am absolutely fascinated with this horse. Before you even said anything, Davey, last thing before we move on, Victoria Road did something very unusual. It's coming off a 9 furlong race, which is quite long for a 2-year-old. The other thing, which I like actually, if you look at Victoria Road's past performances, Davey, you see he raced at Nas, and then 10 days later at Gorman Park. Then
Yeah.
10 days later, that, by the way, that was on my birthday. So how do I
Yeah.
not take a horse who won on my birthday? And
Yeah.
then was given a month at Shanty, and now is off for more than a month. So Aidan O'Brien has had plenty of time to let this horse recover from that very long distance win last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the bottom is there, is what I'm trying to say. Distance is definitely not an issue with this horse at all.
Distance not an issue. It fights. It won't have a gait issue. It's malleable, pliant to the jockeys. It's pliant to the jockeys' demands. But what's not to like?
I think this horse, and you're gonna get a price too. Do you know what Victoria Road is in the market? I think last night we had a show. I think we saw 12-1 here in the States or something around there.
I've taken twice. I took it at 8-1 on my regular book that I use online. But it was 14-1 in another one. So I paid a visit to a shop today. So
oh, you did? Okay. And rumor has it, Davey, you played a little bit of a parlay where you could use Victoria Road. That's so I've heard. There's a rumor.
Yeah, that's a rumor,
All right. So, Dave, let's go on to Saturday races. I'm sorry, Mr. Dundas, you want to add?
Yeah, well, we have to remember there's the case of jockey bookings now. Ryan Moore is either going to be on Victoria Road or Cairo. Now, I wouldn't let that booking put you off. It could be anything. There was a period of time when Ryan Moore, after having a really good purple patch, just at that moment when he was like, nothing could go wrong, he often got put on horses that were the sort of second string. And you have to remember that the Irish guys here, these guys are gamblers. So, I thought they were up to a few tricks there myself. And I think subsequently people have blamed Ryan Moore and said he's out of form or so on. But I think he ultimately turned around to them and said, listen, play the odd little game now and again, but don't do this every other week. I want to win some Group 1s. That's what I'm in for, So I think they got the message because he's consistently more on the top horse now and again. But that doesn't mean they'll pull a fast one and throw him on a horse. We'll have a second string jockey on Victoria Road and the horse will go off a bigger price. And the guys who own the horse they have suitcases of dollar bills in Kentucky. Okay. I mean, this is how they operate,
Real quick, how do you feel about Cairo? Real quick, Davey.
I mean, I think it was put in its place by Spirit Gal in Dundalk. It came back to win a Group 3, but a weak Group 3 in a slow time, softer ground. So I'm all in on Victoria Road, but there you go. I mean, that's the long shot play,
Very important question from my good friend Matt Miller, and of course, Davey, Matt Miller won the BCBC big contest last year, over $600,000. I'm going to read it, Davey, because we have people that are going to be listening on our platforms later. The question from Matt Miller is, Davey, you've made some really compelling cases for Victoria Road and Meditate. How do you get over O'Brien's record at the Breeders' Cup, which has been poor lately, and have deep confidence in these? Is he doing anything different, in your opinion?
I can only answer this by looking at the two specific horses in question and how they've ran and what the plans are for those horses. And there seems to be long-term plans for them, long-term sire plan and a filly that will go into the paddocks at some point. And I think this is their best filly, and their best colt is being kept behind, I think. But maybe Victoria Road can step up and give, Augustine Rodin something to think about next year. But this is not fun. We'll see. The proof will be in the pudding. But
yes,
I like Victoria Road a lot.
Let's go on to another European. I think superstar is fair to say. Let's go on to Saturday's races now. Again, there are 4 races we're going to talk about on Saturday. The first one we're going to talk about is the Turf Sprint, and there is a 5-year-old mare that is absolutely on fire right now. She's won 3 in a row. She's won 5 of her last 6. The name of this horse is Highfield Princess. Many smart people I know, Davey, think this horse can give Golden Pal a serious run for his money. Talk about Highfield Princess.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not against Highfield Princess, but I wouldn't bet her at the price in a sprint race for a start.
What price do you have over there right now in Highfield Princess, Davey?
She's 2-1 along with Golden Pal. I mean, they're both floating at that area. Yeah.
Okay.
Which means there's value everywhere else.
Yes.
And like with an earlier example, I mean, I may ultimately bet Highfield Princess and Golden Pal in a certain scenario because, you know, they may seem to be like, well, they're the best horses, but you have to look for the value first, right? I mean,
For sure. I'm going to get up the Flying Five race as we talk
yeah,
here. So go ahead.
yeah,
You can go.
that's the Irish race. I mean,
Yeah.
one point of concern is that the horses come through the ranks. So it's that fairy tale thing where it was maybe bought for cheap and it, you know, wasn't expected to be anything, and then just kept improving. And it's really one of those cases of, you know, when do you get on the bandwagon? You know, you know, are you the
Yeah.
guy that jumps on the bandwagon that causes the axle to break? You know, you don't want to be that guy, right? You know,
For sure.
so and for me, I wasn't on the bandwagon, and I'm not going about to get on now. So I mean, maybe that's a bad
Wow.
reflection on me when
Okay.
maybe it's the best horse, but you know,
Interesting.
I believe
So
in the
it's just more of a value situation for you. Is that really
yeah,
what
I
it's about?
believe in a bridge too far, particularly in turf sprints when horses can get boxed away, tight turning bend, a bad draw. You know, what do they do about that? You know, the best sprinter in the world in the richest race in the world, the Everest, last week drew the car park, and it
Yeah.
ran out of gas. It ran out of gas with 50 meters to go and lost. You know, and you know,
The
nature
replay of
strip
the Flying Five, she just dominated. I mean, it's, you
dominated.
know,
Yeah,
It, it's hard for me to say because sometimes the video replays, sorry, the video
yeah,
replays can be a bit, deceiving, I think. But if you go just by the time form numbers, Davey, you see
yeah,
125 and 126. Those numbers are right on par with Golden Pal. So if you go off of that, you see Golden Pal is running, anywhere between 100, 110, 106. If you subtract 20 points from Highfield Princess, in theory, the source is just as fast as Golden Pal.
yeah,
There's still a part of it is hard for me to believe that, though, Davey. I don't
yeah, yeah.
know.
I,
You're interested in some others. You like Creative Force a little bit, also, don't you?
Yeah, I think at the value. I mean, there's value, but for example, let's just get a couple out of the way first.
Okay.
Flotus 40-1, Go Bears Go 25-1. They may be value, but they're not going to win.
Okay.
But there are two horses that are value: Emirati Anna 16-1 and Creative Force 11-1. Now, you have to remember the Appleby quote from earlier that I referenced. If he said that there are what he said about his 2-year-olds, it follows that he has no questions about the balance of his runners. That means in the turf sprint, in the mile, and in the turf itself, he feels he has horses buttoned down or as good as they can be. So, and that gives you two options: Creative Force and Naval Crown. And Creative Force is the better horse. It will get Buick probably. Naval Crown is flattened out. So at
Okay.
11-1, that's the horse I've played already. And I think in the British market that will tighten. I'm not sure what it will do on the day in the States. It has to tighten as well, surely. And Appleby with Buick riding it, it has to go off less than 10-1, I'm sure, regardless of Wesley Ward and home turf and all the rest of it.
Now, Dave, you already mentioned that with the O'Briens, you weren't overly concerned whether Ryan Moore jumps on Victoria Road or not. With the
Yeah,
Charles Appleby horses, for people at home, it's
yeah,
very important to understand that William Buick is first call for the booking. I
yeah,
personally, I'm going to upgrade horses that William Buick is on when
yeah.
there's more than one Appleby in the race. Would you agree with that?
Definitely agree with that.
Okay.
Doyle had an injury earlier in the summer. He seems to be fine now, but these things can impact riders, and you don't really notice it
Okay.
until it's
And as
too
I
late.
go full screen, Creative Force ran very well against Kinross, who's running in the mile.
Right.
He's been right there. This horse does have a lot of speed, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure, based on the pace scenario with Golden Pal. I mean, I don't know if Creative Force can battle with Golden Pal and outduel him from a pure pace perspective, Davey. That's my only concern.
Yeah, but you've got someone like William Buick who knows when to push the button and not
Yeah.
to. I mean, and that's
Okay.
a huge difference. I really am a jockey person, in terms of my angles, and I think when we get to the last race, the actual turf, I have another angle I will get to on the
Oh,
jockey.
good. I'd like to hear.
Yeah,
Quickly
yeah,
talk about. I remember last year at this time, Davey, we were talking about Emirati Anna.
yeah,
Raced in, you can see there in the middle of the screen. I'll go full
yeah,
screen. In the
yeah,
middle, did run in the Breeders' Cup Turf
yeah,
Sprint. I thought he was a little disappointing. I don't
yeah.
recall that he had any issue. I don't think there was any trouble in the race. That was with
Right.
at Zenny. He's raced okay. Do you think maybe he's getting back into form? He's
I,
already
I
6
think
years
he is.
old.
I mean,
I
he
don't
was
know.
horrible beyond belief when it
Yeah.
returned in the spring. He ran in 2 races at Maidan, if I remember, and
Yes.
was literally
Awful.
was running backwards. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, you have to remember who the owner is. I mean, the owner is Sheikh Mohammed's cousin. I mean, this is the guy, the colors with the yellow and the black dots. I mean, that's the Dubai royal ruling family, you know.
Okay.
So he wanted the horse in Maidan probably. So the horse went to Maidan, and then the horse sort of picked up in the summer and has gone through the motions and didn't really turn up. But in the 2 big Group 1 races in the late summer, early autumn, namely the Nunthorpe in York and then the Haydock Sprint Cup, the horse was placed. So, you know, the horse is in the top 3 both times. I forget exactly, second and third, I think.
Yes.
Third in the Nunthorpe, second in the Sprint Cup, something like this. So,
Yes.
so that horse is, you've got the record right there. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
third in the Nunthorpe and then second in the Haydock. Yeah.
right. So that you know, that's form. You know, that's sprint form. So it's rounding into something. So if it's coming back into form, and yeah, at 16-1, along with Creative Force, those are the two horses you want to play. I mean,
Okay.
all right, if you want to do a superfecta, you put your Highfield Princess, your Golden Pal, and those two into the hopper, and you're done, aren't you? Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Emirati could be an interesting horse underneath in the verticals for sure.
Right, for sure. Okay, so that, but we got to watch for the jockey booking, because Atzini was the retained rider for this owner for about 8 years, and they parted company. So who gets the ride? I'm not sure. Maybe Totori. I'm not sure he has a ride in it. We'll see. But they'll be interesting to see who Kevin Ryan books for the race. That'll be very, very interesting. And the gate. So watch for that carefully.
Very interesting. All right, Davey. We've done a great job. We're about halfway through our show. We're actually a little more than halfway. I'll give you a little break from talking. I've got my water here, so we got a lot to discuss here, Davey. You've done a great job. Again, for those of you just joining the show, we are here with I would say self-proclaimed UK punter, but now he likes betting Australia and Hong Kong horse. So anyway, let's just say punter from UK. Let's just put it that way. From Liverpool. He's live with us right now as we're filming here at 5:00 Chicago time. Is it 10 or 11 there, Davey?
It's 11.
11 o'clock. He's working, I think, late tomorrow. He has to get late, I think he said. So we're very happy to have Davey Lane with us. All right, Davey, the Filly and Mare Turf. This is a race that I am fascinated with. I think, in my personal opinion, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I think in terms of the contention coming over from Europe, I think as a whole, the best horses are in this race. In other words, if you put all the Euros together, they're the best horses in one particular race. For me, it's the Filly and Mare Turf. You've got Nashua, you have Tuesday above the curve. These are some very nice horses running. Let me go ahead and flip over the
classic winners, Howard. Classic winners. You got the French Peter Dayan, the French Oaks, and you got the Oaks, they call the Oaks.
Who would you like to talk about first, Davey?
Well, let me throw. I mean, I found it very difficult to come up with. I haven't bet this race at all yet because I can't fathom it out. There's cutbacks, there's 3-year-olds, there's 5-year-olds, classic form. There's a lot going on. The wires, it's like a telephone thing, and wires everywhere. But really,
Davey, that's why you're here. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say, Howard, I got the winner. It is this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one thing, and maybe this feeds onto something your esteemed man from Lynn, Massachusetts, Mr. Paul, said last night about.
Paul Halloran.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Paul Halloran.
Shout out to Paul. Frankie Dettori is booked to ride the Queen's Plate winner. We're talking about Euro jockeys now, so I'll just make a quick aside because you asked me on Euros and Frankie's a Euro. Now he's booked, and that's been booked for a while. Now it only lost its most recent race because of a bad ride, and so
that's Moira.
I think it will improve. Now, one thing you have to be aware of is that Frankie Dettori, I think he's currently in Australia. I think he's going to be riding in Sydney on Saturday, and then hopefully maybe he'll get a Melbourne Cup ride. So he's already out there, but he's dieting to make this race. His lowest racing weight in the last X amount of years is 8 stone 8 or 120 pounds. Now that's what Moira has. So that's noteworthy. When a top jockey, who ideally would rather be riding like 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds higher than that, you know, starts drinking the shakes and, you know, and what have you, and the, you know, the Slurpees or whatever it is they drink, you know. But this, you know, this is
They drink
noteworthy.
Slurpees over there? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I've seen them. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
okay. So that's what you have to. That's what you have. That I found that interesting. So we'll see about that. That's currently 20 to 1. Now let's go through the race from the top if you can, if you want to.
It's in the alphabetical order, Davey.
Let's go. Yeah, above the curve, right? Right. She showed she could match Nashua, right? In that last race at the Longchamp, right?
Yes.
But this is a half a furlong cutback.
Yes.
Probably a slightly faster track. Well, that was very soft that day, so probably a much faster track. So I like the horse above the curve, but I think it just gets run off its feet a little bit, and you know, it seems to me that it could stay 2 or 3 furlongs more. So it's got that sort of unlucky 4th or 5th feeling about it. So I like the horse a lot, you know, gutsy and all the rest of it. But you know,
we're going to bring up the end of that race, Davey, because there's a lot of horses that are coming here. Let me go ahead and fast forward, and I'll help people with let me go a little further. You see, it was very soft that day. Let me go to the stretch. I'm going to bring it a little more forward. Sorry, everyone here.
Yeah.
Okay,
there you go.
right here now. I go. So Tuesday is in pink. I think this is Tuesday right here. Above the curve, and Nashua in this race. Nashua's going to run. I think right here is above the curve, and Nashua is going to win the race. I think right here.
No, Nashua doesn't win the race. Nashua finishes second. She went too early.
I'm sorry. Nashua's right here. Gets run over by that long shot. Here's Tuesday, and here's above the curve. Go ahead. They're all right here.
Yeah, the sponsor from Qatar with Mikhail Barcelona riding comes and nabs her on the line. I mean, Nashua probably didn't want to lead, but the horse just got into a rhythm, and Holly Doyle kept going with it. So
again, one more time. This is Nashua, who I think is going to be the favorite. This is Tuesday, and here's above the curve. I'll let it run one more time.
If you go back just a little bit, if you go back just a little bit, go back just a little bit, because above the curve looks cooked at a certain point. Yeah, just follow the race up.
Above the curve is like in between here.
It's right there. Yeah. And there's a certain point, maybe it gets a second win, but there's a certain point when you say to yourself, well, that horse is cooked. And then it just keeps coming. Right now it looks cooked to me. See it bobbling up and down behind the pink?
Yeah.
It looks cooked. But it gets the open space and it sees daylight and it says, well, let's carry on with this, you know? And then it keeps coming and coming and it's grinding away. But you still
I want to stop it here, Davey, and the reason why is you see the time here at the top. This is approximately where the race would be over in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. And I'm not saying they would finish this way. I just want to point out to the viewers that this race we're watching, the Prix de l'Opera, which is the premier, you know, older Filly and Mare race in Europe from Longchamp. This race is longer than the race. This is a mile and a half. It's much longer than the race, the Breeders' Cup. So if this were the Breeders' Cup race, it would be over, and Nashua, in theory, would win. Of course, that's just theoretical. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, it's not a mile and a half though. The Prix de Diane, is it? Didn't they reduce?
This is the Prix de l'Opera, I believe.
Oh yes, that's the Opera Cross. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, of course.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So above the curve was grindy. Nashua had the lead, and Tuesday gave it up. This was also very soft turf, Davey. And as I go back to the PPs here, above the curve looks like one soft. I'm not sure she's going to get it. So you're a little bit against above the curve. Is that right?
I like it. And, you know, in days past, I would have bet the horse based on liking it. But I think it'll be run off its feet. And, you know, I think the further the race goes, the better it would be. But it's not going to be long enough. And I think the faster horse doesn't.
Let's talk about Nashua.
Yeah, I mean, this is the horse that showed the speed. There are no knocks against this horse. It showed the early speed. It maintained. It got in a battle. It fought. It probably, if it had seen the Qatar horse there coming, it might have even battled on further. But you know, this is why you have good jockeys. Barcelona knows. You know, these good jockeys know where to hide. You know, they know horses look at each other and they know where to sneak it in. You know, this is part of the game too. You know. And
who do you think will ride this horse, Davey? Any guess?
Nashua.
Yes.
Yeah, Holly Doyle. Yeah,
Holly Doyle's coming. Okay.
And she's already gone to Japan. So, I mean, she'll be flying back from Japan at some point.
I hope Holly Doyle has this horse up close, because In Italian is a nice horse for Chad Brown. That's been very good in raging form, and looks like we'll have the lead. And what I like about Nashua, and what I don't necessarily like about In Italian, is that I think Nashua won't be that far off of In Italian. I think Holly Doyle is going to put this horse in the right spot, and I think this horse is just much better than In Italian going this distance. So I'm hoping, if you back Nashua, you want this horse relatively close to the lead, correct, Davey?
You do, but you don't want it. You don't want it on the lead. You don't want it making the pace, because that's where it failed in the Opera in Longchamp.
Thoughts on Tuesday and Dreamloper, Davey?
Yeah, and one quick mention for Saffron Beach, which was scratched about 2 or 3 hours ago.
Saffron Beach is out, correct.
Which could have been a contender. And as a result of that, Nashua is now 15-8. So it may not have taken money, but the bookies have cut the price from 5-2 to 15-8, because Saffron Beach, which was roughly 9-2, 5-1, was scratched. Okay. All right. So Tuesday, 8-1. Rough price around now. I mean, I don't know what to do with this horse. I mean, it was the Oaks winner, but I thought that's just because it got a better ride. The Emily Upjohn form is Frank from Champions Day. It's only a length behind Alpinista at York. I mean, there's a lot of things where you can say, this could be the winner. It's possible she can win, but I don't know. I mean, I think in the last 10 years, there's been a couple of score of better O'Brien fillies and mares gone through the mix in this one. I think I don't know.
Yeah, I think Found win years ago, I believe, right?
Yeah. I think there's plenty. Rhododendron. There's a lot of them that have gone through the system, and I think they're better than Tuesday. She may have won an Oaks. So
There's also a horse called Toy that I'm not too familiar with.
Toy.
This horse is an up and comer. I don't know if she's good enough, but she's improving.
She's sneaky. She's a little pocket rocket type of horse. Chestnut. Yeah, no, but I mean, it was there or thereabouts, and I think they tried to give it an easy classic win by taking it to Germany for the German Oaks late in the season, and it just didn't work out. It finished mid-pack. And the horse that won it, the Australian-owned horse, subsequently came over to Belmont and lost by about 1.5, 2 lengths to McCulloch. So, Toy to me is a plucky little thing that's, sneaky perhaps underneath, but not really. I mean, it's, if it's a couple of bucks short of, what was the horse called that lost at the, Toscana Bell. If it's short of that, and Toscana Bell lost to McCulloch, and McCulloch is a length or two behind some of these, so you can project that out.
So it's on the form there, David. You can see. So Toscana Bell right here. You're saying came over. That's right. Came over the States and lost to McCulloch, who also just lost recently. So if you listen, Davey, I'm a math teacher. Sometimes the transitive property doesn't work out real well, where horse A beats B and B beats C, therefore A is better. Sometimes that doesn't always work out, but it is good for comparison purposes. Is there any? Can you talk about Dreamloper, and then we're going to move on, Davey?
Dreamloper is going to go in the mile, isn't it?
I have Dreamloper. I had first call in this race. I could be wrong, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Is Dreamloper going to the mile? Okay. I could be wrong.
I think first call is the mile.
Is he? Okay. My fault. If that's true, I apologize. Okay. Let's move on then, Davey. We got 2 more races to talk about. The mile. Speaking of the mile, well, let's go right to the mile here. We're doing great with our timing here. Let me go ahead and switch over some screens here. The Breeders' Cup Mile is always a great race, and there's usually some very serious Europeans in this race.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to hear what you think of Modern Games. Modern Games, of course, had that controversial win last year at Del Mar with the whole nonsense with the betting issue. She came over here and won the Woodbine Mile up in Canada and was absolutely unbelievable. Let me go full screen here. Was absolutely unbelievable. Then you could say she took a step back. I'm curious to hear what you think of the last race when she raced against Jadumi, who's not here, and lost to Bayside Boy, who, as you said, breaking news, Bayside Boy is not coming now to the state. So the first and third place finishers that were bracketed Modern Games are not coming here. So basically, to me, it looks like it's either Kinross or Modern Games in terms of the Euros. What's your thought here in the mile?
Yeah, those are the two obvious ones, and I think Modern Games is superior than Kinross. I mean, Kinross has really made its name as a 6 furlong horse, a soft ground, and what have you. In theory, it's a kingman. In theory, it should be a miler, and maybe this is the day it steps out. I'm torn. The connections is the Hong Kong-based connection. I think Mark Chan is the name. They had Lazoo as a possibility for the Breeders' Cup, but same trainer, but put that away. So they're not the type. They're not the type maybe to come over for a jolly. This is they're probably serious by putting this horse in here.
You're talking about Kinross, right, Davey?
Yeah, talking about
Okay.
Kinross. So
yeah, okay.
They're probably serious. Although I'm not sure it gets the mile. But then again, a mile around the States in a sort of shorter turning track, and
sure.
They say the 6-7 furlong horses in the UK can get that. I don't know. I think Modern Games is a superior horse, and with the supposedly better ground that we might get,
yes.
we'll take all the beating. But
what are the prices out now in the market? What does it look like right now, Davey?
Well, with Bayside Boy was 8-1, and that's been scratched. That means Modern Games got cut from 5-2 to 9-4. Kinross down from 3-1 to 5-2, and they've been flipping. At one point, Kinross was a favourite, but I think Modern Games has tightened. At least when I last looked, anyway. So
okay, what is value to you on Modern Games on the board in terms of price?
I think I for me anything above 2-1. 9-4 is like an optimal price, I think. I mean, that's a betting price. Yeah.
So at 2-1 or 5-2, you'd be all over Modern Games. Is that correct? 5-2.
Yeah, I would be, but this is the mile. But looking at its opposition, Older Australia, Pogo, Malavat, Dream Loper. I mean, it's clearly 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 horses it beats for a start. That only leaves what? That only leaves 10 Americans to play with, right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
So of those, I mean, 5 of them have to be scrubbers of one kind or another. So so I'm down to a 6-horse race. So yeah, 9-4.
Okay. Hey, but before we talk about Dream Loper, I'm not going to go back. Just real quick thoughts in the mile on Via Sistina. I thought that horse was slightly interesting. Any thoughts on Via Sistina in the mile?
Yeah, she's not going in the mile. She's in the Filly and Murph. No?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Filly Mare Turf. Sorry. Any thoughts on her in the Filly Mare Turf? Excuse me.
Yeah, I discounted these Bowie horses last year, but a second in a Group 3, I don't think that's the best form. I don't think she's winning it. No.
Okay,
so
thanks.
I'm discounted her. Yeah.
Let's close out our mile conversation with Dream Loper, Davey.
Yeah,
who won last time, beat Order Australia by 5 in the Revenant, which Order Australia is going to be in this race. I don't think he's much of a threat. Unfortunately, a really talented horse called Corobus got hurt and fell, and I'm not going to show the replay, obviously, but was had to be put down, unfortunately, and that was the heavy favorite in that race. I don't want to take anything away from Dream Loper, but it's hard to say that result would have been the same if Corobus hadn't fell.
No, it wouldn't be a Group 1 winner in Longchamp if Corobus hadn't have had that mishap.
Yeah. How talented is this horse, Dream Loper?
I think it's a Group 2 horse that got a Group 1 win because of a horrible accident, and I discount it completely. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you'd be. I know we're not going to handicap the race in general, but as you see it, you'd be pretty surprised if Kinross or Modern Games does not win that race. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I'd have to really. I haven't gone deep on the American horses yet, and the mile is
a strong Euro contingent. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The mile is always a difficult race because the horses get tied in and what have you. But I would be surprised if any. It doesn't seem a strong mile for American horses this year.
No, it's although there is a very talented horse called Domestic Spending for Chad Brown that's coming back off a year
Right,
layoff.
right,
Davey, I don't know if
right.
you heard about this horse, but he's
Yeah,
fascinating. If he's ready, he could be a
yeah,
threat. All right,
yeah.
Davey,
I'm not,
I've been waiting all
heard
show.
of horses have a long layoff, by the way. I mean, they can come back fresh and win. I mean, I'm not.
Absolutely.
I would look at that. Yeah.
Davey, I've been waiting all show for right now. The reason is because I'm playing a big contest called the BCBC. I know you're familiar with
Right.
it. A lot of people in the BCBC are going to be playing big doubles of
Right.
the turf into Flightline or into the classic private Flightline. Davey,
Yeah.
I've looked at this at this Breeders' Cup turf for like a good hour, and I
Yeah.
really don't know what to do. And I feel like
Yeah.
I'm pretty well versed and educated with these
Yeah.
horses. Let me
Yeah.
just preface how I feel, and then I'll let you take it over
Okay.
for the next 12 minutes. Okay?
All right.
You've got the Trial Happy horses. You got Rebels Romance and Nation's Pride. Rebels Romance is been winning in Germany. That now he's been winning Group Ones, but it's been in Germany. Nation's Pride is a nice 3-year-old, but you know what, Davey? Just by the figures, this horse is slow. I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way. Maybe
Yeah.
he's going to improve, but he seems a little slow. Broom for Aiden doesn't do much for me. Stone Age, maybe for Aiden, I don't know. And then you got Mishref, my son, who won last year for me in Saudi, and who's a really nice horse, but I think he's tailing off, and I don't know if a mile and a half is the best distance. Let me just say in general, Davey, I have no freaking clue what to do in this race because then you go to who Warlike Goddess for the United States, who I don't know if she's good enough. I am torn, Davey. Help me. I just don't know what to do here.
Right. Well, I've focused on €5. Okay.
All right, here we go. You got it, sir.
I'll go through them from the top.
All right.
Broom is a vanity entry for the Japanese. It already came second last year. Got a good heads up ride from Irad Ortiz. Could it win another? Could it get close in another week renewal? That's possible, but maybe take insurance with it. But it's not for me.
Okay.
And the other vanity play, I'll just jump back down, is Stone Age. Now, Stone Age is seemingly a promising horse owned by Peter Brandt. O'Brien trains for his guys, his Coolmore guys, and there's various owners, the Magnias and all these people. And occasionally you get some sort of, gazillionaire from someplace, like there was a South African, what was his name? Marcus Juice, the furniture owning guy about 5 years ago that had a bunch of horses. And now there's these Japanese guys that throw a bunch of horses, and Peter Brandt throwing a bunch of horses at O'Brien. And occasionally they run with them. But they're often not necessarily the best. It's usually their best, or usually their core ownership. And Stone Age just completely went nowhere. I mean, he's on a one-way ticket probably to Chad Brown after this race, and he'll run in like Group 3s in Tampa Bay or something like this after this. So
wow.
So he's
my goodness. Wait, Stone Age has not been that far off of Nation's Pride though, Davey.
Yeah, but so he's a scrubber, and let me get to Nation's Pride then, if you want. I mean,
well, real quick, Davey, just for our viewers at home, I do want to show Stone Age towards the in a race. This was that's not the race I want at all. Hold on one second here. Hold on one second. Sorry. They had the wrong race up on, of course. Okay, forget it. I was going to show Stone Age in the Irish Champion Stake. Let me just bring up the form, and you can talk a little bit. I'm going to bring up right here. Stone Age was really not that far off of Bay Bridge and Adayar, and I think Adayar, personally, Davey, Adayar, if he came here, would have been 8-5 odds on, in my opinion. I think Adayar would have been a standout. And Stone Age doesn't look like the distance is going to suit. Is that fair to say? Or you just don't think he's talented enough anyway? He's just not good enough.
I don't think he's good enough. No,
okay.
I think I was a believer back in like April,
Okay,
but this was a potential Derby with it. This was the favorite for the Derby back in around April or May. This sort of thing.
Yeah.
So. And it's done
like, Davey? Let's talk some horses you fancy here.
Well, let's go back to what we said earlier about Charlie Appleby's comment. So he likes his horses. So he likes his main contenders, not the 2-year-olds.
Okay.
So so Nation's Pride, impressive stateside, but what does he really beat? So it's a classic flat track bully situation, isn't it? Really, But maybe this is a weak race and it can do better. Now, let's go on to Rebels Romance. I'll give you three names to come back at you for the comment you made about, oh, it was in Germany. Novelist, Daydream, Takata Tossa.
Yeah.
Three major Group 1 powerhouse horses from Germany. I mean, I would you underestimate German form at your peril, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I think watching Rebels Romance in those German races, ironically, if the second horse in either of those two races that Rebels Romance won was actually running in this race, I'd be playing the German horse. But
you're talking about Merrick and Samarco, correct?
Yeah, but they're not entered.
Okay.
But the winning moves in both races were made by two on-point jockeys, Buick and James Doyle. Particularly Buick in the Rebels Romance race. I think this was at Hoppegarten. He made a very in Berlin. He made a very deft move up the inside.
Yes.
When it looked like he could have been in trouble. And again, it's about, by doing so, he put his horse out of sight of what he deemed to be the biggest danger, who at the time was going wider. And it paid off, and he won the race. So I think what you have to look at is, who does Buick ride? And I would bet dollars to donuts that Buick will choose Rebels Romance. I mean,
really,
I could be wrong about that, but that's my instinct.
Yeah, we talked about this last night, because Buick came to the States here on the Saratoga Derby Invitational and rode Nation's Pride. So I said last night on my show, Davey, that whoever Buick jumps on is probably the horse that I would bet in the turf. Do you feel that way right now?
Yeah. So that's the real question. So and I think he'll pick Rebels Romance. Now, does that mean he's going to win? I don't know, but that puts that gives the horse the best possible chance.
That's what people are saying in the chat. We got Chris Mack. I'm sorry to everyone. I haven't been mentioning a lot of people in the chat. I apologize. But Chris Mack wants to see where Buick goes. Dewey Fan wants to know where Buick goes. Dewey Fan actually thinks Buick's going to pick Nation's Pride. If Buick picks Nation's Pride, Davey, would that be your top pick?
No.
No. Okay, so you're a Rebels Romance guy all the way. With those two, with the Applebys.
With those two, I think it's a better horse. Yeah. Okay. Nation's Pride finished 8th in a derby. I mean, it's still 8th in a derby. Down the field. And then he went to the States and won easy races. So
So do you? I had this question before we talk about Mishriff, Davey. To me, this is a very important question. Nation's Pride, Davey, looks a little bit like Yabir 2.0, right? That 3-year-old who went to the States and improved. My gut feeling, and I don't know how you feel, but a lot of smart handicappers over here in the States feel the way that I do a little bit, is that Nation's Pride is just a cut below Yabir last year. Would you agree with that? Or is it just too hard to say?
Definitely a cut below. And Yabir was lucky. He was lucky. He was only having to only had to overtake Broome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this Breeders' Cup Turf is nothing special either, really. Mishriff, Davey, what do we do with this outstanding 5-year-old who's had an unbelievable career, 15.8 million? I think the Arc de Triomphe, I think we can toss out. It was very soft. He doesn't want that. He is getting more firm turf next weekend, but he has not won since the Juddmonte International last year. I'm not sure 1.5 miles is his best distance. What do you see Mishriff next week?
But he's won over 1.5 miles, and he's won good races over 1.5 miles. I mean, and his form is patchy this year, but his second in July to Verdani in the Eclipse. I mean, he pretty much would have
beat Native Trail, and then was second to Baid in the Juddmonte. I mean, was
Irish
champions with only 2 lengths back to Luxembourg.
Fourth, So I mean, in theory, he's staring you right in the face. Just because he's not 19-1, and just because he's a bit older and so on, he's a classic winner. He's won the big races on dirt. He's come back to turf. he's basically won that race that against Verdani, which was the best 10 10 furlong horse, 12 furlong. I mean, he's right there. So
Okay.
he's the 800-pound gorilla staring you in the face. Yeah. So
Davey, for you, it's either give me your top 3 choices of the Euros in the turf, please.
Okay, well, that would be Mishriff, Rebels, Romance. I wouldn't have the others getting anywhere in the place, and then underneath there'd be something else.
So you like Mishriff over Rebels Romance, Davey, as your top choice?
I really can't split them. I haven't chosen one or the other. What I'm saying is that I think Rebels Romance has the edge on Nation's Pride, and I'm not sure about versus Mishriff.
Wow.
And that will really come down to what Dettori and Buick. If Buick's riding Rebels Romance and Dettori's on Mishriff, I mean, it's a game of 2 great jockeys, then, isn't it?
Dettori hasn't been on Mishriff, I don't believe. I'm looking at the PB.
Well, he rides for Gosden, and the stable jockey for the Saudi-owned horse had his job taken away. Egan, the kid who won on him in Saudi.
Right.
So I assume Dettori's going to ride the horse. I mean, who else is going to ride the horse? I mean,
wow.
He works for Gosden.
What a story! Is this Mishriff's last race? Do you know, Davey?
Probably. I mean, but they might bring him back for one more go in the Saudi Cup. I mean, who knows what these guys are thinking? I don't know.
Or maybe to Hong Kong. I think he's been invited to Hong Kong or Japan too, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Davey, as we wrap up the show here, man, you've been awesome. You've been everything that I'd hoped for. We've covered a lot of horses. We've covered a lot of races. There are 7 European, 7 turf races the Europeans are going to be in. Just a ballpark guess, Davey, out of the 7, if you had to go to Las Vegas right now and make a bet, over, under, how many of those 7 races we went over are going to be won by Euros, if you would guess?
Okay, well, the Juvenile Turf Sprint, 1. The Juvenile Fillies Turf, 2.
Okay.
The Juvenile Turf, 3. The Turf Sprint, not sure.
Okay. We'll say 3 right now.
Yeah. The Fillium Turf, 4.
Okay.
5. 6.
Wow. I'll tell you what. People can come out and say, "Oh, he's a homer. It's because he's lives in Liverpool." Davey, I don't know about 6, but it's gonna be a lot. This is a very nice European contingent.
It's 5 or 6.
Okay. I have no problem with that. Davey, as we wrap up the show, let me just bring up the banner. Anything you want to say to the fans here in the U.S.? Anything in general about the races? I'm assuming, of course, you'll be betting. They're going to be happening live in the late afternoon into the evening over in the UK. How much interest would you say there is right now, based on what you're hearing and the buzz in the UK for the Breeders' Cup this year?
And again, I think I answered this question last year. Most English horse players are more interested in the horses going over fences at this time of year. It's the start of their season. That's what turns them on. They put their tweed coats on and their and they drink their beer and they watch the horses going over the fences, and that's just what they do in the wintertime. Now a lot more may watch them, but that's just the reality of it. So it's the national hunt. The horses over the fences is a more popular sport than the flat in this country.
No, I understand it. Last thing I want to say, Davey, I want to say this publicly. Davey was very kind, and several months ago invited me out to Europe next year to his place, and perhaps not only watch some horse racing, maybe watch some golf, because the U.S. Open, I'm a golf fan, is in Royal Liverpool, I believe, next year, the Open Championship. Davey, I want to say publicly, if I can make it happen, I accept your invitation. I'd love to come over there. I've never been over to Europe to watch horse racing, so I'm not making any promises, Davey Lane, but thank you very much for the invitation. I'd love to make it happen. Awesome. We've got plenty of time to talk about that, but that'd be quite the treat. Are you going to be over in the States anytime soon? Do you see, Davey?
Yeah, maybe, but we'll see. My sister's over there, so we'll see.
All right. Any final thoughts, Davey, for the Breeders' Cup as we wrap it up?
No, I think there's no bombs. I think I've I like Victoria Road as a value play. I like the Creative Force as a value play, but I know it's going to be a tough to beat the two hot pots. But there you go, you have to try. And I like Persian Force also. So there's three value plays: Persian Force 10-1, Creative Force 11-1, and Victoria Road 14-1. There's three value plays. They're not 60-1, but it's not bad.
There you go. Punch it home. There's Davey Lane. Just go to the windows right now and make your plays. Davey, really appreciate it.
I'm going to do a £25 each way treble on those three I just named, just because once you name them out, you have to follow up.
Can you explain to the US bettors what type of bet that is, please?
A treble would be like a parlay. You put if you put £100 on a horse at even money, then you get 200 rolling onto the next horse, and that rolls onto the next horse.
And each way means they could come in third as well, correct?
Correct. So if you do it each way, if they get 3 places, you get the place parlay, if you will, the place accumulator.
Right.
So you can cover yourself if you're pretty confident. Of course, they always finish fourth, don't they?
That could happen.
Davey, I don't know. You've seen some of my bets over the past year. I've shared a few winning ones with you. So I mean, you've seen me. You've seen me.
And some of those horses are on some of those bets are on horses we've touted or tipped out on the power picks, which I sort of promoted earlier, Davey. So thank you for your support and thank you for your confidence in myself and the other hosts on the HHH Racing Podcast, because you scored on some of those as well, correct?
Yeah, correct. I think I had a nice score with Moira and one of them was in that race. One of yours was in that. I'm blocking on the name now, but Patrick Husband's coming up on another one. That was it. Yes. Third in the English Guineas there a few years ago. What's it called? Wakefield. Yeah, God, it's named after an English rugby team or something. It just finished out of the picture in the last race it ran. Fev Rover.
Oh, Fev Rover. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And how that horse won, I don't know, because the other jockey on the other horse celebrated. Did you see that?
I saw that. The horse thought they won. They didn't. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I was cursing left, right, and center. And I actually turned off the computer. I was like, that's done. Half an hour later, I came back to see I'd won.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Davey, we really appreciate all the time you spend. All of our viewers. Cannot thank you enough for giving us all this insight. And again, everyone, take it or leave it. I mean, this is a very experienced handicapper over here, but it's horse racing. That's just his opinion. If you don't like his opinion, that's fine. Then you can bet against those horses or bet with them. Davey, we wish you a ton of success on Breeders' Cup weekend, next weekend, and of course the rest of the year. And then you and I will be in touch, hopefully, for my trip over to Europe next summer. Thanks a lot, Davey. We really appreciate your time. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Stay in the back room after the show ends, yeah?
I'm sorry?
I'll stay in the back room after the show ends?
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Davey. All right, take care.
Yeah,
bye-bye. All right. Wow. You wanted information. This is the information we're going to give you. That was 90 minutes of information about the Euros. I've seen live shows on YouTube and other places where they'll give you, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We showed replays. Davey Lane had very sound reasoning. I asked him a lot of questions. You just got a lot of information, and there's a lot more great information to come right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Very quickly, one more time. Here's what's coming up. We have a show on Monday about the post position draw, and then our big shows are next Tuesday and Wednesday for the Friday and Saturday cards. We also have a show this evening, Thursday, in about an hour and a half, talking about the Santa Anita races this weekend and the Pick 5. So, again, we really do appreciate your support. If you have any comments, if you're listening to this or watching this later on as a replay, please put comments below down the video player, and myself and Davey Lane will try to answer as many questions as possible on the Euros. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz, for Davey Lane in Liverpool, England. Thanks for watching episode 197 of the HHH Racing Podcast, the European horse special for the Breeders' Cup. Good luck with your European horse bets at the Breeders' Cup on Breeders' Cup weekend. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.